Welcome to Season 10, Episode 6 of Highside, Lowside. I'm Spurge. This is Zach, and we are joined today by Kayla Yaakov, who is going to be talking to us about what it's like being a 17-year-old rising star racing in MotoAmerica. We're also going to get into Harley-Davidson baggers racing at MotoGP, and we have a question from an individual who's on a mountain bike but wants a dirt bike to go do a BDR. What bike should they choose? All of that and much, much more. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Engine oil can be intimidating. Should you buy Motul 5100, 300V, 7100, 710? Luckily, you can learn more about each and every type of Motul oil over at RevZilla.com/Motul. And if you're intimidated to change your own oil, for example, on that very same page, you'll probably see a how-to video with instructions on how to do it yourself. Whichever Motul oil you choose for your machine, remember that when you buy your next batch of engine oil from RevZilla.com, you can bet a few of those dollars go toward producing this Highside Lowside podcast. That's RevZilla.com/MOTUL.
And when you're over there on RevZilla.com, just keep in mind that every time you make a purchase with RevZilla, a little bit of that money goes back into funding the programs that you enjoy. Whether it's Zach and I sitting here talking with you on Highside, Lowside, or the shenanigans that people get into when you're out riding for a CTXP episode, or maybe you just appreciate the gear reviews and the product information. RevZilla gives back to riders because that's who we all are. Riders. So keep that in mind next time you need to make a purchase for your motorcycle. From cruisers to sport bikes to adventure bikes and everything in between, we've got you covered at RevZilla.com.
Okie doke, Spurjo, off we go. I'm tempted to ask you if you have a sort of like rant or some sort of news topic that you'd like to cover, but we figured it was appropriate, what with our guest today, to talk a little bit about racing in a sort of not the news style topic to kick off today.
Yeah, I'm always ready with a rant as to what has angered me this week in the world. But I think that one of the things that has popped up recently is an announcement from Harley-Davidson that they're bringing bagger racing to MotoGP level,
right?
Premier class of racing, right? So they're taking it outside of America, right, if you will. So, Zach, you know, for somebody like yourself who is a purist at heart and a fan of MotoGP, how do you feel about the baggers being brought to the world stage?
Yeah, so I think it's an exhibition thing, right? I think they announced like they're doing 6 rounds in 2026 or 2027 or something like that. They signed a couple-year contract. But the point is that they're dipping the toe in that pool, and I think it's an interesting conversation because on the one hand, you point out that I was a road racer when I was a teenager, and you know, I wasn't particularly good at it, but like it's a big part of the core motorcyclist of who I am, and I love MotoGP and I love World Superbike and I love, you know, stuff like that. And so to someone like me, it would be easy to assume that I think it's this sort of like silly thing to do to race Harley Davidsons as a representation of American racing on the world stage, because that's what are we doing? But I'm also like, I raced sidecars for many years with my dad. And I only bring that up because to me, baggers are kind of similar to sidecar racing in so much as like, it's a contraption that doesn't make a lot of sense to race, but it's a good show and it's fun to do. So like, you know, I like to try to put a positive spin on things. And like, I guess I'm curious, even though I waffled on my answer a little bit, you are less connected to road racing and you have not competed on pavement in your life. What's your sort of like, I don't know, maybe like outside the inner circle take on it? Do you like,
there's two things.
Do you think it's a fun idea, or are you kind of like, do you roll your eyes a little bit?
There's two things that you mentioned that I think are relevant to this conversation. So the first one I want to hit on is it attracts eyeballs, right? Like we know that it has helped to bring new viewers to the sport of motorcycle racing. There's people that previously didn't watch motorcycle racing in America, and now they're coming and they're watching, because it's a spectacle. It's these 600 and odd pound motorcycles. You and I have sat on them. You've ridden one around the track. Like
I have.
They're beasts, and it's fun to watch. They make a great sound, and it's an interesting kind of racing. So I think from that standpoint, you know, can you bring some additional eyeballs to motorcycles around the world? That's the first thing. But go ahead.
Okay.
No, give me a comment.
Here's what I have to say about that. you draw Americans in to watch racing with Harley Davidsons. I don't know if you draw in Australians, Spanish, Italians.
There are plenty of people around the world that want to see what stupid thing Americans are going to do next. So, let's be honest.
It should be exclusive to American riders. Like, you have to be an American to do this. And then everyone can just be like, oh boy, those Yankees, they don't know what's up, Because if you start bringing
that's actually an interesting point, is the fact that it would, so far it's been American riders. It's an American, circuit. What happens if you start to get some people from around the world riding these bikes?
They have hired, you got ex-World Superbike people that riding baggers, and there have been some foreign talent employed to do it, and I'm only half kidding, but it might be funny if it was just no, it's got to be corn-fed Americans that do this, otherwise no one's going to care. I don't know.
So second point you made.
You had a second point. I forgot already.
And this is what ties it into our conversation today with Kayla, is that you casually threw out that you were a failed teenage racer. And I really hope Kayla's listening to this part of the conversation. I just hope that she really took it on that she is succeeding in an area where you have just failed. You weren't good enough. You couldn't cut it.
We all get to the point in our lives where people that are younger than you are doing things that are more interesting and dynamic and succeeding in ways. Do you remember? I feel like I remember having a time in my life where I was watching, I don't know, March Madness or basketball or something like that, and this the 17-year-old, or when you watch MotoGP and there'd be 125cc GP racers or Moto3 racers or something like that are 15, and when I started to be 18, 19, 22, 25, and I was sort of being wow, that person's they really have their act together. And I guess I dropped the ball. So yeah, I assume that this will be a humbling conversation.
I find it interesting now that we're in our early 40s to look back and you see all athletes are in their 20s, and you just it just makes you feel old. And speaking of making us feel old, Kayla has been listening to all of our nonsensical rambling. I would love, Kayla, as we're shifting the conversation a little bit now to focus on including you and some of the work that you've done. You are out there on the MotoAmerica grid. You're watching the bagger racing happening firsthand. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about them taking the baggers to the world stage?
Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's crazy to see what MotoAmerica has transformed that class into. I remember when they came into the series and just thinking, wow, this is the stupidest thing ever. Nice. You'd watch it and you'd just say, I mean, it's cool, but why? And honestly, as the series has grown, as you said, more talent has gotten into it. Obviously last year, Troy Herfoss came over and won it. And then now we have Loris Baz and Bradley Smith. Both of them have raced in MotoGP, and now they're on this bagger. It's wow, this is pretty crazy. But yeah, I think it's like you guys said, it's going to bring interest. Yes, it is kind of an American class. I think it does really well here because a lot of people can relate to it. A lot of guys in America will ride hogs on the street. And so when you see that on the track, you're like, oh, that's really cool. But,
right.
In Europe, it's a little bit different, but I still think that interest is going to be there. It's kind of I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say tractor racing, but it's a little similar to that, where it's really odd, really big thing, and I don't know. But I think it'll be really cool to see. Hopefully, bring more eyes not only to racing in general, but American racing. And I'm excited.
Have you ridden one of the bagger bikes yet? Have you had an opportunity to try one out?
No, I've sat on one, but I haven't actually ridden one yet.
Okay.
Would you do it if someone offered you just to try it? Would you do it?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe I'd do it. I mean, all right. If Ducati made one too, I would do it.
There we go. Okay, there we go.
Right, so on the company line.
Now that's actually a perfect transition. It is. Let's just take a minute. Let's back up here. We're no longer talking about baggers. Kayla Yaakov is our guest. Kayla, you are now in your second year of the Super Sport class. Is that correct?
Yes, you are correct.
And how long have you been racing MotoAmerica now?
I came into MotoAmerica right when I was age eligible, so right on my 14th birthday.
All right, so this is so 4 years then. This is your fourth season in MotoAmerica?
Yeah, in June.
I'm trying to do math. I'm trying to do math in my head. I know that you're 17 years old. I'm going backwards here. All right.
Well, yeah. So thank you so much, Kayla, for joining us for this conversation. We have a lot of stuff we want to ask you, and I appreciate right out of the gate that you have a sort of I don't know, optimistic and grateful view of bagger racing. I feel like that's our first little window into your personality. That while you thought baggers were stupid, you sort of do appreciate appreciate the eyeballs they draw and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm encouraged. I feel like we might find more common ground later in this conversation, but for now, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us.
Thank you guys. I'm excited to be on. Hopefully, share a little bit and hear what you guys have to say for sure.
well, we're going to start off with just some fun. We always call this the lightning round, but this is to help both our audience as well as us get to know you a little bit. And for our audience's sake, we were talking with Kayla a little bit earlier. Like Zach and I, we try to do our homework a little bit. Obviously, Kayla is someone that we follow with all the articles that Lance is writing on MotoAmerica over on our online magazine, Common Tread. But we also want to leave a little bit of room for excitement and actually just having a natural conversation. And one of the questions that Zach and I want to hit right off the bat is, what was your first motorcycle? And how did you get into riding? Like, I know a little bit about your dad based on your interviews, but like, how did you get into riding? What was your passion and what was your first motorcycle?
Yeah. So, my first motorcycle was a Suzuki JR50.
Classic.
But yeah, I got into it. I actually started with go-karts and did go-kart racing for, I don't know how long, but it didn't last very long. I was 3 years old. So I remember they had to make me a custom seat. I couldn't reach the pedals, couldn't reach the steering wheel. I was so small. But yeah, I never really picked up with me. But then just kind of found my way into bikes. My dad always had road racing magazines laying around and would obviously be watching road racing, and I wanted to try it. So the best way to do that was to get into flat track. I feel like that's always a really good path for road racers starting out. And that's what especially Americans. Yeah, I did that with my JR and ended up getting to a PW and then progressing from there higher and higher. Got into motocross when I was 5 and then got into road racing when I was 7. And I've said it before, but then I'm doing all 3 and my dad's like, okay, I can't handle all of this. So you got to pick a couple and go with it.
So what dropped first?
I think
what did you stop doing first? Was it motocross or flat track?
I think it was flat track because I think I kept doing motocross until I started getting hurt in motocross. Then stopped doing that totally.
Jumping always seems dangerous to me too. I don't
it's
know.
not the jumping, it's the landing. It's how you're coming down.
That's totally fair. And so did you continued doing flat track and road racing simultaneously? And I assume you cross trained up to this day, but was there a point where you sort of took your foot off the gas pedal with flat track?
Well, so flat track was the first one to go, I guess I should say. Then it was motocross. So like with moto, I actually was pretty decent. I got selected for what they do in Supercross, where you have the kids that go out during the intermission. Right. So I did that when I was 7 or 8. Nice. So I was in Anaheim and that kind of stuff. And I think I finished. Show. Yeah, I finished like 6 or 7. So I wasn't bad. And almost qualified for Loretta's. I crashed out of the race. That sucked. But no, I was good at moto. And then, like I said, the first time I had an ACL injury was with motocross. So that kind of stopped everything there. And
how old were you when you had your first ACL injury?
I think I was probably 12 or 13. Okay. Yeah, when that happened. Okay. Maybe a little bit younger, but I'm trying to remember. It started early and then it got worse and worse until I totally tore my ACL and a bunch of other stuff. But yeah,
This is all through motocross?
So the first time, yes, but the actual tearing and then later on my other knee was road racing. No. Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Weird stuff though. It's not stuff that you would, I guess, necessarily think about. It's like weird crashes where maybe the bike hits me and then it does something weird, or just weird things. But is what it is.
Yeah, fair enough.
So at what point, and you know, you have a lot of confidence in the way you're speaking about this, like at what point did you start to realize that you were good, right? Because like you're talking about like going to Anaheim, and I know that you live on the Northeast, so like you weren't just driving down the road, like you had to figure that out. Like at what point did you start to realize like, hey, you know, I could actually be better than the average person at this?
I think it really just comes from my dad. My dad always pushed me to be better and pushed me to, I guess, just keep elevating myself. And we'd always be at the track. That's just, we surrounded ourselves with everything. And I think people who follow me and my story know that my dad actually built a track around my house, and it was for him when he was racing. But ended up, I don't think he's used it more than 10 times. And I, you know, that's basically my proving ground now. But yeah, I just was always surrounded by it, and it didn't feel, I guess I should say, like it wasn't something where I was like thinking about not doing it for the rest of my life. It was always something that I knew, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to love this. And there was never another option for me.
So I guess I feel like I want to ask you, you know, you said like it's something you always just felt like you were going to do, was ride motorcycles. And I feel like even washed up racers such as myself could have that feeling. But there must have been a time when you thought, oh, like I'm better at this than the other kids or the other people. Like you were probably pretty young when you were passing adults on a racetrack. Like you must have had a moment where you thought like, oh, like other people care about me doing this. It's not just my dad and me that care about this. Do you have a memory of that moment, or did it just sort of like, I don't know, kind of evolve organically?
I guess so. When I was little, I would race in mini GP. That's kind of how you start on little bikes, all the little mini GP tracks. When I do that, I would race against adults, but there would be a couple other kids that would race with adults too. So I feel like it was kind of later when I started getting to the bigger bikes and racing on bigger bikes and then beating adults, and doing really well. That's kind of when I started to say, okay, well, I guess this is a little bit abnormal that I'm still winning these races. And then
yeah,
obviously, like, I feel like you get to a certain point where you're like, well, I guess I could go here and I could go here and I could go here and maybe I could succeed here. Right. So I think when I finally realized, okay, this can be something big, is when I got the opportunity to go to Europe and race in Europe. And that's when I was like, okay, this is where we have to really pay attention and start focusing on it.
Yeah. Did you feel pressure in that moment? Like as bigger opportunities came to you, do you think did you feel pressure? Did you enjoy it? Some people enjoy the pressure of that.
I think initially, like going to Europe, I actually didn't feel a lot of pressure. I felt pressure for myself. I've always been like that. Yeah. But I think like really the most amount of pressure I've ever felt is just from my own, you know,
right.
What I want for myself and what I feel like I can do. But no, there are some times where you're like, man, I've traveled all this way and it's only a couple of races. I need to do well. I need to, you know, do well for my team. I need to do well for me. I need to do well for my dad, who's, you know, obviously spent so much time and effort to be here. Right. So you think about it, but I don't think that one affects me as much. Yeah.
Well, I noticed earlier that you said, you mentioned like, oh yeah, I almost qualified for Loretta Lynn's, like, which is off-road, or motocross, amateur national championship. Right. And I thought it was interesting that you noted that, right? Like that's still in your head that you're like, I crashed out of that race. Otherwise I would have qualified. Like that's a classic racer mentality to be like, you have that memory. Like you're not necessarily beating yourself up about it, but you have that memory of not accomplishing the thing. That's totally fair. Yeah.
So one of the more, you know, it's funny because you've mentioned, you know, where you started on motorcycles and then, you know, where you're at today. And obviously you kind of kick things off with a little, you know, casual mention of the Ducati that you're racing now. Take the Ducati out of it. We know that right now the Ducati is your favorite motorcycle, but just for like a fun audience question, out of all the motorcycles you've ridden before you came to the Ducati, what was the one that you look back on? You're like, I really liked that motorcycle. What was your favorite up until this point?
Ooh.
Or it could be a training bike even, like, I don't know, you still probably ride some flat track or supermoto or that kind of thing, right?
I love my Supermoto bike. I mean, that I have it's a Husky 450 Supermoto. That's what I have right now. I'm hoping to get I know Ducati just came out with the actual Supermoto, so I'm hoping to get that. But that's a really cool bike. I just rode it yesterday, actually. I came back from Pittsburgh. But man, that's just like fun to slide around on. Before I went to the Ducatis, I was riding R6s, the Kawasaki 636. I mean, honestly, any super sport bike is like super fun. I just always have a blast on them. Mm-hmm. Like the R6 is like super easy to ride and you can pretty much just go fast right away. I feel like that's a really, really good bike to just go fast on. But yeah, when I got on the Ducati, I will just say like, not even being biased, like that was so much fun. Like I remember getting on it. I'm like, this thing is so cool. The V2 especially. You get on the V4, you're like, oh my God, you like feel like you're going to fly off everywhere, which is also cool.
Is that more fun or less fun for you? Like, it's fun because it's so fast, but like, is it over? I mean, it's overwhelming for someone like of my level, but like, do you feel like kind of addicted to it, or are you sort of like, whoa, man, that's a lot?
I'm addicted to it because I can actually go fast now. Like, I feel like with the V2, we get restricted a little bit with our power because all the bikes have to be tuned. So to have something that's full out is actually really fun. And,
yeah, totally.
You know, being able to go that fast and the bike's just easy to ride. Like these bikes these days are so easy. You can just get on it and be within 2 seconds of a really fast time right away. So no, I love I think the V4 I totally forgot about that until right now. That's probably my favorite bike right now.
Okay. So like the highest horsepower, fastest motorcycle you've ever ridden. That's the one that's the most fun. Yeah. Your favorite. Yeah, sure. That's fair. Well, here's a little bit of a curveball for you. When was the last time you rode a JR50? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh.
Do you still have it around?
No, I remember I sold it and I was saying bye to my bike. I remember that. I was like, oh no, I'm losing my baby. But that was probably over 10 years ago now.
Okay, wow. Yeah. So it's been a while. All right. Well, I was going to ask if you had like, it sounds like you did have some nostalgia though. Like when you got rid of it, it was a sad day. Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's hard to get saying goodbye to your first motorcycle. You know, it's never easy.
Indeed.
So with the V2, and I can kind of throw this back to Zach. I know Zach, you just rode the newest iteration of the Panigale V2. Kayla, are you riding the brand new version? Do you know? Are you riding the previous generation? Do you know which?
I'm riding the previous one. So the new one has to be homologated for the class. That's why in World Superbike and even in MotoAmerica, no one's on the new 25 bikes yet. So once we get that homologated, I think we'll be in good shape. Those are good bikes.
Have you ridden the new bike just like in sort of like street or track trim, whatever, like at a track day with no mirrors or whatever? Not race prepped or?
Not the new V2. I've ridden the new V4 fully street. It was at Chukwala. The Ducati guys do DRE days and Ducati Revs days. Mm-hmm. So when they did that, I rode the new 25 and man, that thing is great. It's so good.
So you're excited about the new V2. Yeah. And I guess I think one of the things about the new V2 is that it's going to have to be restricted less just because it's a smaller engine and it's like a little bit more compact. It's probably going to suit you much better. I would guess, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll see. And the double-sided swing arm is just going to help. I know some of the Ducati guys don't like the double-sided, but for us as racers, I mean, it's going to help us tremendously against especially the other bikes. I think with the single-sided swing arm, it brings a lot of rigidity to the bike. So, you know, where we struggle in the middle of the corner, we maybe won't struggle as much. So I'm excited to get on it, try it, and yeah.
Right on.
So I think this is a fun pivot point, you know, and you've brought up your dad quite a bit. One of the things that, you know, I think is really interesting for us as we kind of talked about this is that, you know, no one gets into motorcycling without some kind of support from their parents, right? At least at a young age. I think that if we get into it later in life, we can kind of make our own decisions. So I guess for us, you know, for myself specifically, like how has family, you know, shaped that role of you getting into motorcycling? And I know you talked about go-karts. Obviously someone had to, help build you the booster seat for the go-kart. And I know that your dad, I've seen the interviews with him with wearing a KTM shirt. So I own a few KTMs. So I have a fondness for your father already. But like, what was the passion level and how did you work that in with your family, and what role has family kind of played for you in your adventure into getting on two wheels?
Yeah, it's huge. I think with any racing family, you always see, especially when they're kids, you have your whole family at the track with you, and it's just a family event. And I think as you get older, it starts to break away from that a little bit. Maybe it's now I just travel with my dad. So I think for me, it's always like deeply rooted that, okay, this was like something where my whole family would come together and be able to support me with. And I think that's really special that a sport can get that out of you, and get that out of the people that are close to you. But I think, like I said, as I got older, it's less and less people, but now I say, hey, you guys want to come to a race? I still have tickets and whatever. And I think they get to see, okay, all the sacrifices that we made, when I was younger, and to travel and to try to go to these races so I can get some more exposure and to try to win, and all this stuff is paying off. And I think it's rewarding for me, but I think family plays a big part in how grateful I am to be where I'm at, and that they can hopefully be repaid one day with, I don't know, with something.
Okay. Well, that's good that you haven't, sounds like no one's drawn a line in the sand of where, how and you would repay them. We actually have a question about that a little later on, so I don't want to jump the gun. I'm curious what you think about, you talked a little bit about sort of like a family event, going to the track with family and that kind of thing. I assume that a lot of your social life is at the racetrack, right? Like you have friends, you built community at the races and around motorcycling. Is that like I guess, I don't know. I'm curious what you think about the pluses and perhaps minuses of being so committed to one thing that you do in your life, and building friendships there. And I'm sure there are positives there, but do you ever see, I don't know, do you ever see the other side of the coin and sort of wonder what your life would be like if you weren't doing this?
Yeah, it's, I think I've said it already, but racing comes with sacrifice. And part of that being, okay, when you're young, really with any sport now, you have to be super young and start and
right.
to really succeed. So I've obviously been doing it since I was very little, and I'm traveling across the country, which caused me to miss a lot of school. And then luckily for me, not lucky for everybody, but the pandemic happened and it created online school. So online schooling was a lot more, I guess, prevalent after. So I was able to just do online while I was in Europe and traveling to the West Coast, and I'm not even here for weeks at a time. So,
right.
Yeah, I guess I would say I didn't go to high school once. I only went in to take my standardized tests. I did half of middle school. So basically I had my elementary school, but that was kind of the end of all of that. But yeah, I think when I think about my friends, my really close friends that I talk to every day, and then some of the friends I see at home, yeah, I have way more friends at the racetrack.
Right.
It's just something I got used to when I was young. I mean, a lot of the kids I raced with when I was little, I still race with now, which is really cool. So you kind of still get that a little bit of like a high school experience, but it's
right.
3 days out of the, 3 to 6 days out of the month instead of, 7 days or 5 days a week, I should say.
Right.
But no, I still enjoy it. I feel like it's really cool because you spend a lot of, I guess, quality time. Like when I go to the races with my friends, we're always going karting or going to dinner
right.
and doing something.
And there are other people your age at the racetrack in the MotoAmerica paddock, right? So
yeah.
I assume, I'm not saying that you're only friends with the other teenagers, but you can be friends with teenagers at the track because there are other people your age doing it. And I assume that sort of like helps you build community, right?
For sure. Definitely.
Yeah. So I assume,
I think, you're mentioning teenagers and it's like, I think about like, the relationship that you and your dad have gotten to have because of this. And I think about like the average teenager, like when I was 17, I was just like, damn it, Dad, I don't need you. And it sounds like you and your dad, I'm sure that you have regular teenage, conflict at certain times, but like
moments.
Exactly. But like, it's kind of cool that seems like you and your dad have a unique relationship, and the fact that you are spending so much time together when, the average teenager is usually kind of like bucking back against the folks pretty hard.
Yeah, no, it happens. I mean, even last night we were having an argument about what's a tire iron and what was a crowbar. So, I mean, it was like a 20-minute lengthy argument about that. So, no, it happens, but no, it's cool. We get to joke around.
You are obligated to cause your parents some, consternation and like, stress. So I think that's good. You got to argue with them,
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. I love to hear it. So I assume back to the sort of like a school and community thing. You did a great job breaking down like, your interaction with high school and like how you've learned. And I assume you don't like play sport, like play basketball or like, involved in school activities like that. But do you have other hobbies aside from motorcycling that offer you, I don't know, friends and community and that kind of thing as well?
Yeah. When I was first going to Europe, I was doing a lot of like skate stuff. I would skateboard, BMX, scooter stuff. But I mean, that was once I kind of realized, okay, I need to not jump a quarter pipe and get absolutely destroyed on a bicycle. I kind of stepped back from that. But that built a little bit of community. I made some friends doing that. And then now I really just do a lot of like mountain biking. I really love mountain biking. I play music. I do a lot of stuff. I have friends that do music around me, so that brings me a little bit there. And yeah, it's cool to do a few other things and kind of detach from racing every once in a while.
What's your relationship with music? I'm like wannabe musician. I always thought it would be cool to play an instrument, but I'm either not talented or determined enough to do it yet. I still have time. But what's your relationship with music been like in your life?
I was actually in band when I was in elementary and middle school.
Okay.
So I played the saxophone.
Nice.
I can still play the saxophone, but I need to get it serviced. But I mainly just play guitar and bass. I feel like that I'm the best at that. I do pretty well there, and just have fun whenever I'm home, play around, try, everyone who plays any instrument wants to be an aspiring artist. So I feel like everyone tries a little bit there. But no, I just love music in general. I have so many vinyl records and just,
all right. We can do a whole separate podcast about guitars and vinyl. I'm stoked. This is great. No, but I think it's interesting because like it never fails, right? Like I know I played guitar, and when I was focused on guitar, I just wanted to be riding motorcycles, right? Like I was out playing in a band, and I was like, motorcycles are where it's at, right? And then I ended up making a career out of motorcycles. And now I go home and I'm like, I'm going to be back in a band one day. I'm going to dust this thing off, and that's what I'm going to do. And you're a professional motorcycle racer, and yet you're still probably picking up the guitar being like, I think I could probably go, maybe go be in a band someday.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always in the back of your head.
Do you think you'd do that? Would you be in a band?
If I didn't race, yeah.
Okay. I mean, do you ever pick out any names? What would your band name be? Like if you were the lead, you have.
That's a hard question.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I just wondered, like, maybe you've done a lot of long road trips. Maybe you came up with a band name. I don't know.
I would do something like either super cryptic, I don't know, something weird, or obscure. Like, I don't know, like just a name, random word that I found really cool, or like something super stupid that I would turn around. Like one of my favorite bands, I said it before, but like Korn, I love heavy stuff. Like that's like such a stupid name, but they made it so like cool and edgy. And it's like if I did something stupid like Eggplant, dude, I have this rocking shirt and it's just like all these thrashed, letters or whatever. I don't know. It's not gonna be my band name, but I'm just saying.
I love Eggplant.
Like
Eggplant's awesome. You do like the G's backwards. It'd be very
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't want to derail this because I know it's a motorcycle podcast and Zach is going to regret ever bringing this up. But I was actually watching. I was watching a thing, and I think it was I think it was either Head or Monkey from Korn the other day, and they were talking about how they designed the logo, and they were trying to go through all these different designs, and finally and the record company didn't like it, and he finally took like a crayon and he scribbled it on a crayon, and he's like, use this. And they were like, okay. And they just literally took the crayon drawing, and that's what became the famous logo.
You've heard that story before, Kayla?
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
It was Jonathan, the lead singer. Yeah.
There you go.
Right on. I didn't, I learned something today, so that was fun. Okay. Well, we're going to pivot back.
See, Zach is going to pull us out of this conversation before we keep going on a rabbit hole. Cause I was like, welcome. What other bands are we talking about here? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sort of I'm going to ease my way into this conversation because, I hope it's not awkward to bring up, and I'm sure you've answered questions like this before, but when I spent time in vans on road trips going to races with my dad when I was a teenager, not on a national professional stage like you are, of course, but all the same, it was a road trip and there were arguments about tire irons, I'm sure. One of the things we talked about was I remember having conversations about why there aren't more women that race motorcycles. And it seemed, we always sort of questioned, like, it doesn't, it's a physical sport. It's hard to do. You have to be strong, but you don't have to be strong in a way that a woman can't be strong, which is obviously something that you've done a good job proving. And so I'm curious your perspective on this. Why do you think it's as simple as testosterone fueled idiocy that drags more men into motorcycling than women because women are more sensible in general, or is it some physical thing, or is it like, what's your perspective on why there aren't more women and girls doing what you have done?
I think there are a couple of things. When I was younger, there wasn't a lot of, I guess there wasn't a certain girl that I looked up to and said, I want to be just like her.
Right.
So I think that stems a little bit from that. I think like I said, when you start in a sport, even if you're older, like, you want to look to someone and say, oh, wow, well, if they can do it, I can.
Right.
And I think a guy can relate to that, right? Like, oh, if you see an American doing well in MotoGP, you're like, well, I can do well in MotoGP. So it's the same kind of thing. But I think that it stems a little bit from that. And also, I feel like people are, especially girls, are kind of put down for being weaker, or, they don't want to take as much risk or this or that. When it's not really the case. I feel like for me, I've worked really hard to work on things that as a girl, I physically can't do as well. So I have to work really hard to make up for that. But
can you give us an example of
just like upper body strength? Like, men are inherently a lot stronger with their upper body. So maybe a guy that I race with doesn't have to do as many exercises to, do something better, right?
Right.
Make a transition easier.
Right.
For me, it's going to be a little bit harder to do. And just the way I ride, right? Like, I have to really, especially being shorter too. I'm one of the shortest in the class, if not the shortest in the class. So that doesn't help either.
Right. Fair enough.
So just the way I have to do things is a little bit different. But it's not something that is undoable. Like, I clearly am doing it. And I really think that many women can go out and do really well. And, I don't think it's because I'm crazy. And I don't think it's like I have these super high testosterone levels. Like, I don't think it's anything weird like that. I think it's just, I told myself when I was younger that I wanted to become a champion and I wanted to become a race winner. I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. And I'm stuck on that. And I'm going to keep doing everything I can to get there.
And I'm sorry, Zach, I just have a quick follow-up to that. So you mentioned the role model aspect, right? And as a young girl growing up in the sport and becoming a role model yourself as a young woman in the sport, do you feel pressure to be that role model for young women? Or are you at a point where you're like, I want to take the conversation about being a woman out of it. I am a motorcycle racer and I just want to compete, and be a motorcycle racer. Like, where do you fall on that line now that you are somebody that other young women are looking up to?
I think it's good, especially when we pass like milestones, it's good to say, well, she was the first woman to win a MotoAmerica race. I think that brings a lot of inspiration. But I think if I'm if it's oversaturated, then it becomes a little bit annoying to me because I don't want to be, I don't know. I don't want to be this thing where they keep pushing me because like I want to be pushed. It's hard to say, right? It's like a double-edged sword. Like I want to show girls, okay, I'm doing it, but I don't want to be the, like, I don't know, the child of the series that they're just trying to feed out to the public. And I think for the wrong reasons, you know what I mean? Not because I'm,
sure.
If I was winning and if I'm doing well, yes, you always push the people that are winning. You push the people that are doing that. But if I'm, you know, maybe I have a bad race, but they still post me, I'm like, dude, just stop. I don't even want to hear it anymore. I just want to like go out and do well.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. Like, I want to be the racer and I want to be just like everybody else. But I think there are times where, yes, you need to show, okay, there is representation there and these girls can do it. And obviously I'm that, I guess that example here in MotoAmerica right now. Yeah.
So basically, like on a competition level, you treat me fairly and you treat me equal to my peers. But when I'm out, you know, from an image standpoint, like it's okay to be an inspiration because of what I'm naturally doing very well.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, like about pressure, I think there's not really pressure. I don't really see it sometimes. I see it when I'm at the track and I see girls that come up to me and tell me, and that's amazing. Like it's something that I never had thought about until I was in that position, I guess. But I guess I don't really feel pressure from that. I just feel really honored that I can be that, I guess, person for them and person for girls in the country and who watch MotoAmerica and stuff.
Yeah, that must be such a great feeling. I mean, it's awesome when anyone appreciates, you know, what you work hard on, but like it must feel really, really great to, especially as you identified that as something that, you know, you had undeniably fewer role models in your gender silo when you were growing up to look up to. So like to be that person must feel great. And I don't want to drag up too many bad memories or anything, but do you think that in your career and in your lifetime of riding and going to the track, you've faced, so, you know, you talked a little bit about sort of like unfair spotlights, you know, sort of like, well, I don't want the spotlight if I don't deserve it kind of thing. Do you think you've also faced unfair, I don't know, discrimination or like, do you remember, you know, when you were 7, you know, like boys being like, oh, she shouldn't be here, or like, I don't know, other parents, or like, have you ever faced that? Or do you think it's been, you've largely been welcomed?
Yeah.
For the most, I think in the last few years, it's definitely changed a lot. When I was younger and going, I guess, up through the ranks, I would experience it every once in a while where, you know, either people would, I guess, complain or whatever if something was posted about me, or then, you know, if I show up to a track, I'm not treated the same. I'm kind of pushed off to the side. But I guess now that maybe I'm not going to say like made a name for myself, but I've built up some credibility.
Yeah,
I've gotten results, and I think people see that. There's a little bit less of that. So I think that it's getting better. And also we're hopefully, you know, with the women's world championship and more, I guess, exposure there, I don't think people are as like shocked now when they see it. Right. So they're not asking as many weird questions or whatever. So no, I think it's gotten better.
I'm actually, I'm curious about that. And I had a little bit of a gnarly tech glitch earlier, so hopefully I'm not asking a question that Spurge already asked, but it's my impression that you do not want to race in women's only series. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate.
So do you think that they are a positive thing? It's almost like a tangential to the bagger conversation. It's like, do you think it's good overall because it shines a spotlight and it offers an arena for women to race? Or do you think that like it should just be sort of like a you know, like an all gender sport?
I think it's good because it's showing that yes, there's a place for everybody. This sport is not just men. There's women in it involved now too. I think that's a good side of it. But for me, I I always just want to be the best. I want to be the best at the sport, and I want to be the best at, in my series. I'm not saying there's not going to be a time where maybe I want to try and race in the championship, because these girls are fast. Of course they are.
Right.
But I'm just saying, I feel like for me and my progression, I need to stay with what I'm doing. I have obviously a really credible guy in my corner, Ben Spies. Anyone who's involved in racing knows, he was a World Superbike world champion, raced in MotoGP, race winner in MotoGP, multi-time AMA champion. Like, he's telling me in my ear, okay, this is what you should be doing. And I'm following along that path. So I'm not trying to go out and diss this championship. I feel like this championship is great. And it gives another outlet. It gives a spotlight. Hopefully that brings opportunity to those girls who are winning to go on and do other things and race at a very high level with everybody. But yeah, I think for me right now, I want to stay where I'm at. I want to keep progressing here. And yeah.
Well, Kayla, you mentioned Ben, and that's actually a perfect transition, because that was our next segment to talk to you about. We want to get into training. Ben obviously is somebody that's, your team manager and somebody that you have an opportunity to learn from. And we want to ask, there's so much to unpack here. We got to have to take a quick break from our sponsor, MoTool, and then we're going to come back in and jump into some questions around training and your work with Ben.
All right, we're back. Kayla, I just want to say you're doing a great job with this conversation with two middle-aged men, and it occurred to me, you probably talk to guys your dad's age a lot about motorcycles, don't you? This is just like what you do. And I'm curious, just as a quick sidebar question before we start talking about training, who's the person, and maybe your dad's like an obvious answer because you spent so much time together, but do you ever have a conversation with someone where you're like, oh, wow, like a peer at the racetrack or another person your age, and you sort of like have a conversation and you're like, wow, this person actually like speaks my language. Like, we feel like I'm communicating on a different level because I'm not talking to a 40-year-old dude with a beard again.
Yeah. But I think that growing up in the racetrack, like, everyone kind of merges together at some point. So especially the other riders, you can pretty much talk to almost like your friends,
Okay,
so it's a little different there. But yeah, there's like definitely times where I'll talk to certain friends or people that are at the track, and I'm like, it's cool, it's great, I'm glad you're here, but man, wow, you've been here since like the 70s. That's crazy. But, no, it's cool. I definitely have friends that are my age. Even my teammates, my teammates are 30, in their 30s now, and super cool, super cool guys. But
I think so. That's a great segue. And first of all, Zach and I weren't alive in the 70s, so we're not quite that old.
Just to be clear, exactly.
We're 80s kids. But no, I think it's really exciting. For as you're talking about, like, getting to learn from people that are a little bit older. Obviously, Ben Spies is somebody that has had a very long and impressive career. So as you're getting into training, just kind of focusing on Ben for a minute here, like, what has Ben brought to your training and your racing specifically, and really what have you learned from him, and how has that relationship kind of progressed?
I think, when I was little, I can't remember if he reached out to my dad or my dad reached out to him. But I was racing NSF 250s, which are little GP bikes. But before I had an RS 125 as well. So those of you who love two strokes, love that bike.
Word.
But anyways, I was on little GP bikes and was trying to figure out the next steps. My dad was trying to figure out the next steps, I should say. And they got talking and kind of sparked from there. I ended up going to Europe, like I said before. He kind of helped us with some connections over there, just to say, hey, meet these people. Maybe they could help you here. And then as I progressed in MotoAmerica, we kept talking more and more. And then going into Supersport, or the year I was supposed to have in Supersport, he was like, hey, like, there's this new team coming out. And at the time, he wasn't even sure if it was going to happen yet. But he was like, I think I'm going to be involved in it. And if I am, I'd love for you to be one of our riders. And I was like,
awesome.
Well, that's amazing. Of course. I mean, you can't say no to him. And it developed more and more and ended up being, hey, we actually do have this team. And this is the Real Ducati Moto team and you're on it now. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So from that point, basically, he was like, you got to get us a road bike. I had a road bike at that point, but he's like, okay, you're going to start doing a lot of stuff with this. Here are some other exercises I want you to start doing to help with your fitness. And then as the year went on and he understood how I ride. He understands how I approach a weekend. We can work into that as well. So it's really cool. Now this year, it's a little bit different. He's not having to learn. He can basically say, okay, he's at the track. He sees what's going on. He can give me, whether it's trackside, like, hey, this guy's doing this here, which is something that was really important at Road Atlanta. That helped a lot.
So like actual, like specific trackside notes, like I can see that people are doing this. Can you try that? Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like something like that. And then from a mental side, like if I'm having a bad weekend or a bad session, he's like, hey, look, this happens, but one thing he said to me this year that's helped a lot is like, you're doing exactly what I'd want you to do for your second year. And you're showing your speed at every track we've gone to. Like, this is exactly what we want. And so that gives me a lot of confidence. And just hearing that from someone like him, who obviously has those accolades, is just, everything I need. And it makes me confident and go into the next round, not with my head super low and, dreading another weekend of hopefully doing better. I feel like, okay, well, I'm doing everything I can and I'm doing it right. So, no, he's a great guy. Love him and having him in my corner.
I want to, so I know that we want to kind of, get a little bit into like some of the actual training and explaining to our audience, the physical aspect of this, but I want to pause for a second. Cause you mentioned, Ben giving you the feedback of like, you're doing really well for your second year. And one of the articles that I went back and looked at, Lance Oliver is our managing editor for Common Tread. He writes a lot, and he covers MotoAmerica for us. And one of the things that he talked about in his 2025 season preview article was that, for the super sport class this year, you're in a really difficult position because you have, folks like Matt Skultz and PJ Jacobson that are coming down from Superbike. You have, Josh Hayes kind of coming out of retirement again and racing. You have Cameron Peterson. Like, you have all these people that have all these different and varied experiences, and you're in your sophomore year. So like, what has that been like for you to have to go up against, and I think Lance put in the article, he's like, normally, Kayla, you'd be racing against other people in super sport that are coming up, and now you're racing against people that are, coming back down into your class. How have you dealt with that? What are some of the ways that you and Ben have worked on that aspect of it? And how has that been challenging for you?
Yeah, look, it's tough because, it's tough for me because of results. Results mean a lot, not only just to myself, but to sponsors. Right. And look at the lap times from what we're doing these past 2 years from this year with me and last year. I would have been on the podium at almost every single race the year before all these Superbike guys came down. I would have been on the podium, and that's insane. It's tough because I'm like, well, I should have been there. But I think of it, right? Like, I'm racing with these guys. PJ Jacobson almost won the World Supersport Championship twice, finished second in those championships. Matthew Skultz raced in World Supersport as well. Josh Hayes is a multi-time AMA Superbike champion. He raced a MotoGP bike too. Yeah. These guys are super fast. So if I'm racing around them, my lap times are close to them. And each year I'm progressing and getting closer. I mean, that's preparing me more and more for when I get onto either a Superbike or go to Europe again and race in Europe, because it's going to be like this. It's going to be, every weekend, these guys are pushing the envelope. We're going faster and faster, and the times are going to be super close. And if I learn to deal with that now, learn to manage that, and how I can find those, not even tenths of seconds, less than that, thousands of seconds, that's just going to make me better. And, that's something like I talked with Ben about. It can be frustrating and it can suck at times when you're like, I know my times would have put me, like, there are literally times I've had where I'm like, I would have won the race 2 years ago. Yeah. But you can't look at that. The sport's always evolving, and people are going to get faster, and that's what I have to do. And I'm happy to be in it. And I feel like at my age and with the people around me, I'm doing pretty well. So as long as I keep improving, I'm going to be happy.
This is an extension of like your attitude of I want to race against the best. Like I just want to, I want to be in the biggest pond I can be in, and if there are big fish around, then so be it. I feel like that's refreshing. It's good to hear you have that.
I think it would be pretty easy to get caught up in like you sandbagging sons of bitches, like coming down here and stealing this away from me. But like I love the fact that you're trying to look at this as this is greater experience for where I want to go in my career. And like, what can I learn from what they're doing at this level so that I can be better by the time I get to the next level? I think that's a great outlook. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm curious. I don't know if this is going to be like too granular a question in general, or if you want to answer it, but you talked about Ben giving you, side of the track advice. Can you give a specific example? Like, was there sort of like, does it have to do with body position, or does it have to do with, sort of like, I don't know, racing lines, or like what kind of stuff do you guys talk about in those scenarios, and what helps you the most?
Yeah. So kind of at the level we're at, he's told me before, he's like, I can't sit here and tell you how to ride, because you've obviously, you know how to ride, you know how to go fast.
Right.
When we go to certain tracks, like Road Atlanta, for example, there are certain people that will just come through the beginning really tight chicane part of the S's and do various lines, and finding which one is faster, is kind of hard to do unless you're in a big group, and you're not really in a big group until it's race time. Right. So, it's kind of hard to learn in the race what is fast and what's not. So having him there track side, he can visually see, okay, this is faster and this is exactly what he's doing. Now, normally with lines, right? Like it's the same thing. We're kind of at a level where the lines don't matter as much.
Right.
But there are certain places where, yes, people will have a different line, whether it's because of a bike or because they're just doing something crazy. And that was the case at Road Atlanta, right? There's people doing some crazy lines, but they're working. So, that's what he looks at. That's what he tells us. And
then you experiment with it.
Yeah, you try. I think I just posted a reel of me coming through the S's and getting all out of shape because I tried something different. But that's part of it, and finding the limit, finding what works and what doesn't, especially with your bike. But he's a good guy to have in my corner. A great benefit to not only me but our team.
Yeah.
For non-racers, I have a question. So, and Zach probably already knows the answer to this, which is why Zach didn't ask the question. Mm-hmm. But for our audience, not for myself, because I'm sure that I know the answer
you're
to
too
this.
smart for this question.
Yeah. But for our audience that doesn't race motorcycles, when you're talking about like at this level, the line doesn't matter as much. Explain that, and what does that mean?
Typically, I would say a professional racer, when you go to any track, you're going to find the racing line naturally, because that's what you do. So for me, right, like I know I have to turn in here. I have to be at this exact spot at the apex. I need to be to the edge of the track. Like we always use all of the track and maximize that for our speed. And I think when you take someone, say even a fast amateur guy, right? It's going to be a little bit harder for him to go to a new track and say, oh, well, what is the correct line right away? But I think as a professional racer, we're just kind of instinctually like that, because that's what we've been doing, especially for me, right? Like since I was 3. So, no, it's a little easier, I guess, for us to maximize all of that space, all of the track, and not have to worry about, okay, am I on the correct line right now? That's just what we inherently do.
Okay. Gotcha. Appreciate that.
It's just part of your
no
instinct problem. if you're a track rider.
Well, no, like
we can't
for
teach
me,
this to you.
No,
Sorry.
stop it. How dare you? But like, I guess for me, like if I go and do a track day, and Zach's right, I've never competed on a racetrack. I've competed enduro stuff, amateur, just local stuff. But like, if I go to do a track day, like I know where my fast line is, and I'm just going out every session and I'm just trying to hit that line, right? And if I go to do a new track, I spend most of my time just being like, okay, like where's the line? And then I'm just going to try and hit that apex at the right point at every corner. And then I feel like, that's how I'm spending a lot of time. So what you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that like when you're racing, some of that, you're not going out to a track to think about like, I have to be perfect through the line. You're thinking about like, if I have 3 people around me, I just have to know how to get through the corner the fastest, regardless of what the condition is in that moment.
Pretty much. Yeah. And it's like racing, right? Like when we race and we're all together, I'm not thinking about, oh, am I missing my turn in? We're basically, it's always just like, okay, am I doing enough here to make up time? Or, what can I do to make this lap time faster? Do I push the braking zone more? It's not there's certain instances where like you really need to have certain references, but I'm sure I could do a track that I've been to a million times almost blindfolded because I know, okay, this is exactly how I feel. For me, I'm very feel based. So for maybe other people, they need the references a lot more, but like I could go over a certain bump in a corner and say, that's my tip in. And I don't even need to think about it each lap. I just know I'm turning in at that point.
Right.
That's cool.
Well, on to pivot back to Ben Spies for a moment and sort of the guidance that he's giving you, I'm curious about a specific facet, and we touched on it a little bit, I suppose, but like the sort of fatigue of racing. And I'm not talking about physical, I mean sort of like mental fatigue. And I remember, I think it was a social media post. I'm pretty sure it was Ben who posted somewhere on social media years and years and years ago, maybe when he was in MotoGP or World Superbike or something like that. And I remember it was something like he basically got out of a taxi or like left a dinner somewhere in the world where he was, and he went back to his hotel and he pulled his key card out of his pocket and he was like, I don't know what room I'm in. I don't remember what floor I'm on or what room I'm in. I have no idea. And I think the point of the post was sort of like, you do this so much, you just get so tired of being in another hotel and being in another city and another place. And not that you can still feel grateful for your job and your life and what you get to do, but you can be tired of that kind of thing. And there's a fatigue there. Have you talked to him about that at all? Or like, has he talked about the sort of like mental fatigue of, I don't know, whether it's like, media, interviews or travel or, being away from your home or anything like that?
Yeah,
or are you not even there yet? You're just like still high on life.
I mean, that conversation hasn't come up as much. I really enjoy the travel aspect of it. I think he struggled with that. He doesn't like airplanes or anything, so he struggles a little bit more with that aspect. But I would say, but I like it. I feel like right now I've had a little bit of time, but there's certain rounds that I go to, right, that have a lot more media. Like we go to Laguna Seca or Daytona. Like I remember Daytona, the first Daytona 200 I did was like really mentally draining. It was a lot. It was really good. Like you said, it was amazing. I did an article with what am I forgetting right now? It's Wall Street Journal. I did an article with them and I had to do a whole shoot. And then obviously like the AMA cover, I was on the AMA cover, so I did a shoot with them. And then I'm doing things for, the Today Show. And then I'm all this stuff for this one weekend. And then I'm trying to race on top of that.
Right.
So, it's tough. But for me, like, especially that weekend, it was hard to stay like in one spot for a certain period of time and just like take a breath. But I think it's the same thing. Like if I want to be successful at what I'm doing, I need to go through it and just like tough it out. Like it's only for 3 days of the year, 3 days of the weekend.
Right.
Then I'm back to normal life for a few days and then I'm back to it. You know what I mean?
But you're so good at this. And like, I do want to take a second and pay you a compliment because we've talked to a lot of people on the podcast and I've watched a lot of interviews with people and like, you genuinely seem like you are enjoying it, and not just the racing part, but you genuinely seem like you enjoy talking to people. You're very well spoken. You're very thoughtful. So how did you was it just naturally the way that you and your family would have conversations with one another, or how did you get so natural at just like talking and having conversations? Cause I feel like
feeling comfortable talking to strangers or other people or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. My mom hates public speaking. She doesn't really like. She's like, I don't know how you do that. How you talk to people for so long. My dad doesn't really talk to people that he doesn't really feel like talking to. So it's just like, you know, I don't know. I like having conversations, meeting new people. Like I love being involved. I've always been a social person. And I don't know why, but I think it's just come easier for me than I guess for other people. And I think it's made it better, obviously from a media side and personality side, to just like show, hey, like I'm not just riding a bike and then sitting and training all day. Like I want to be involved and I want to share that with people. And I think that's why I'm so enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, I think some people, you're talking about your mom being like, oh, I would never be able to do that. It's so much pressure. Like, do you feel pressure, or do you feel like, oh, I'm just having a conversation about motorcycling and we're just talking about racing? Like, there's no pressure here. Like, we're just talking about what we're doing.
Yeah, usually no pressure. Like, I did one for Fox News, and it was like live TV. It was live on Fox, and it was broadcast or whatever. And I'm just on a Zoom call. Like I'm on a Zoom call talking to them. It was weird because, they're like, okay, well, on commercial break, you got 15 seconds. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like I'm about to do
You're
this.
like, how do people live like this? This is nuts.
Yeah, how do you do this all the time? But, I'm just talking about racing, talking about what I love. And it's just easy because I love it.
For our audience that might not be aware, last year you were focused in the Pressure to Rise series that MotoAmerica did, where they had camera people follow you around throughout the season and you shot. And obviously that is a step above like a regular, Fox morning show interview or a Wall Street Journal interview. Like you had people following you around with a camera and you're trying to deal with your rookie season in the super sport class. Like, what was that like? And for those of you listening, if you want to go see it, the series is up on YouTube. It's the Pressure to Rise, I believe, season 4. What was it like being part of something like that? And did that add pressure to what you were trying to do as a rookie?
Well, it was great. I was happy to do it. That was,
that's a very diplomatic answer. That's good. Yeah.
When they told me that was something that they were thinking about, I was like, I think this would be great. I think, yes, there was a little bit of added pressure because it's a TV show. You want to be someone that they're rooting for and you want to do well. So there was a little bit of pressure with that. But I wouldn't say it was really affecting me. I would think about it a little bit like, I want to do good this weekend so that this show looks good. But no, the only thing I would say with that is I wish it would show a little bit more of when I didn't have a good weekend. I think that's something people need to see more often too, is like how, especially for someone like me, like I'm very passionate about what I do. And I do like, I guess, show my emotion a little bit, whether I'm not sitting here and crying the whole time, but I'm saying like, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm, mad at whether it's a different rider or myself or, whatever. I get upset with that. So showing that I think is important too. And seeing that it's not just always, oh, I'm happy to be here, happy to be racing. It's like, man, this is like everything to me. And when I don't do well, or I don't have the weekend that I would have wanted, I am not happy. So but it was great. I was happy to do it. And I was happy that there were definitely some really good episodes that, they showed with me, and I'm, definitely check it out if you guys haven't seen it.
Do you ever get frustrated with racer interviews when you watch? I maybe you don't. I assume you watch like Moto2 or MotoGP, or like you watch World Superbike or whatever. I just feel like it's so common for racers to just have these personalities that you're just like, I'm looking at a fence post. Like, just say something. Like, why are you so boring? Say like, be someone. Be anybody. I don't know. Like, it doesn't matter. Do you feel that frustration too? And it seems like you recognize that kind of stuff has come easy to you. But do you
but it's why it's so refreshing to watch you in an interview, because I'm just like, like you have a personality, and it's like you're engaged and you're excited about motorcycling.
No, I think, I get the same way. I'm like watching some of the interviews and I'm like, dude, I can be doing anything else. Like the only reason I watch is to see if they have like any insight about what the track was like or whatever. At that point. Right. But like I watch Supercross, and Supercross is like entertaining to watch an interview because those guys don't care. Like they're just like, whatever. Oh, yeah. I think a little bit in road racing, people are a little nervous to show that. And
why do you think that is?
I'm not really sure why. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I try in my interviews to be funny a little bit, especially the last few years. I've gotten a little bit looser with that, or say something maybe that people don't agree with when it comes to the racing. And I don't know. I think it's good. I wouldn't say like to have the controversy, but to just be, not just be a robot about everything. It was a great race. Had a lot of fun. Thank you. Like, say something weird about the race. Like, dude, I almost crashed 5 times and I needed a new pair of pants. Like, dude, say something different.
Yeah, right. But like a level of honesty, right? Like, that's kind of cool.
Do you ever get blowback for that? Have you ever said something and people are like, "Whoa, you probably shouldn't say that," or do you? I don't know. Yeah. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to take down my monitor right now because I keep kicking the table. But no,
you're so angry at this question,
right? Yeah. There was like a couple of comments I made about like even being a female racer where people are like, maybe you should have said that or whatever. And I'm like, I feel like I didn't say anything that was not true to me. Like I've always said stuff that has been true to me. And I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. You know what I mean? Like I'm only speaking what I mean, and this is how it is. And I think even when you watch Supercross, right? Like a great example is Deegan. I've said it before. Like the kid doesn't care and he's saying exactly what he's thinking. And that's how he's built his brand. Like, and that's brought so many eyes to Supercross.
Yeah.
And I think why isn't there one of those, breakthrough people in road racing? Obviously we had Valentino Rossi, but since then there hasn't really been anyone to fill, I guess, those shoes.
Yeah, I feel like with Supercross, and it's funny because like I've probably been watching Supercross closer this year than I have in past years with it being, I know it was on Peacock in past years, but we now have a Peacock subscription in our house, so like it's a little bit easier to watch. But it's like the interviews are like everybody's kind of got like their own little character, and like everybody's got a little bit more personality, and like. I remember watching, AP after the Massachusetts race in the rain, and he was going crazy and running around and ripping his shirt off. And like, it was just, there was like an energy to some of it where, sometimes you watch the road racing series and you're like, just a little bit.
It's stodgy. I think it's an industry thing too. I have a story I like to tell. I interviewed Marc Marquez before his first MotoGP race. He had been signed with Honda to race. So it would have been 13 or 14? I think beginning of the 2014.
Was his first year.
13 was his first year. So yeah, it would have been like March of 2013. They were coming to COTA and they did a factory test, factory Honda, factory Yamaha, and then like one other rider or something like that came to COTA to like test the track. And American Honda sent us there. And I got to interview Marc Marquez as a MotoGP rider, but before his first race. And one of the things I asked him was about superstition. It doesn't even really matter what I asked him, but I asked him about, are you superstitious? And he was like, not really. Although I do wear, what did he say? Like, I think he said like, I wear blue underwear on practice and qualifying. And then for the race, I wear red underwear. And at the time it was like, because they would always show a red helmet next to your name when you had the fastest lap. And he was like, so I wear red underwear. And I left the press. I was like, that's a great answer. It was fun. Cool. I leave. And the guy from Honda, who was our liaison, was like, oh man, he shouldn't have said that. Like, that's so like, I'm really like, I feel bad. Like, I'm sorry. Or like, he shouldn't have said that. And I was like, that was a great answer.
Yeah.
Like, why not talk about that kind of thing? Like, that's a funny thing. Like, you let someone into your world. And I think Marc Marquez does have the same, like a similar kind of knack to, as you have, Kayla, where he's sort of like, he's loose and like open and available. And it's like, it's disarming and it's
that's
refreshing.
Gotten better the last few years. I feel like there were years where it was like kind of at least for him, like he's always been my favorite rider. So like, a little bit more reserved and just like, this guy who's just an alien out there. Like he's different than everybody else. But I feel like the last few years, especially with him being on Gresini and MotoGP and then now with Factory, like he's just opened up fully and it's cool to see. Yeah.
I think you get to a certain level and it sounds like you felt this a little bit too. Like you maybe you felt a little bit more pressurized or reserved when you were first on a national stage, but now that you probably feel more comfortable in the paddock. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I imagine when you get to be whatever a 8-time world champion like he is, you're like, I can say whatever I want. Like, Oakley's not going to drop their sponsorship on me.
I'll wear whatever color underpants I want to wear. Exactly. Honda can't tell me what to do. I think so. This kind of segues, talking about, the MotoGP level and the next level, like, you know, kind of talking about like professional plans and where you see yourself going for the future. I was, you know, we talked about music and guitars earlier, and so I'm gonna bring it back around a little bit as a segue. But there's a young woman that I really like her guitar playing. Her name is Grace Bowers. She's 18. She's a guitar player in out of Nashville, and she talked about very similar to yourself in the fact that like she's like, yeah, like I didn't go to school for the last 2 years. I was out touring around and I was homeschooled and I had this opportunity. And she's now looking at like a lot of her friends who are graduating and going off to college. And she posted on social media recently where she was like, it's weird. Like I'm with Chris Martin from Coldplay playing guitar at the Grammys. And I am going to go out on tour. And yet I'm looking at all these posts where my friends are going off to college and I'm trying to find, like, I'm really excited about what I'm doing. But like, even with like playing at the Grammys, like I'm still a little bit like, you know, oh, what about college? And what's that like? So as you're getting to the point where I worked at Blockbuster when I was 17 years old. And for you, like,
she probably doesn't even know what Blockbuster is.
This is back when you had to like go and rent a video and put it in a VCR. And like, that was my profession at 17, right? Like, so like, I wasn't planning on making a career out of that. You're in such a unique position where like, you're 17 and you already have this amazing career. And I know that you've talked, I've read interviews with you where you've talked about the importance of like education, and you're still very excited about like figuring out what college would look like while you're doing this. But like, what is going through your head right now? You are doing so amazingly, you know, you're so advanced over other 17-year-olds in this career that you have. What's next for you, and how do you see this transition starting to play out?
Yeah. Well, I agree with what she was saying. You know, for me, I graduate this year. I graduated early. But yeah, all my friends are going to colleges and stuff, and they're posting, oh, this is where I'm going. And we're like, wow, that's crazy, you know, that they're going and doing these things. And it's not that I feel like I'm missing out on that, but it's like how different my life could have been if I didn't choose what I do. But no, I'm like so thankful. Like I've seen so many countries. I've been all around the US. And I, like you said, I have kind of like my own career that I'm doing and I'm following and pursuing already. So, that's pretty unique. But no, I'm excited. I feel like for me, for my future, you know, I'm going to keep racing as long as I can. I want to go to Superbikes, either here or in Europe with World Superbike. And, you know, we'll see what goes on in Europe in the next few years with MotoGP changing the rules and whatever. Right. But I think that's my, you know, goal is to go to Superbikes at some point, try to do well there. And yeah, I think after racing, I want to still be involved in the riding community, whether it's like, you know, commentary, which I've already done, which is crazy in some races. Or, you know, just coaching. I have my own coaching business I already am involved in, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think interview coaching, that's your, you know, drawing personality out of these people. That's your calling. Not that you're not a good rider, but I don't know.
Teaching other riders how to speak as articulately as you. That'd be great. So are you coaching like young kids coming up right now? Like I wasn't familiar with your coaching aspect.
I coach anybody. I mainly do.
She could coach you, Spurgeon.
You could coach me. I'm not. You could coach old kids like me. Yeah,
exactly. A lot of my clients are older guys that want to just get better, and I think for me, so it's like my own advanced riding school. It's Area 31 Advanced Riding School, I think, or Advanced Coaching. One or the other. I'm trying to remember. But anyways, I do, you know, anybody who track rides, who wants to do better, who wants to get, like I've done novice, intermediate, and advanced. So like everybody. And anyone who just wants to get better at riding, whether you want to be safer, faster, you know, I can help. And I feel like for me, like we've talked about, I can kind of articulate some things and speak well. So it's a little bit easier to understand. Right. I think that's why it's become easy for me to do something like coaching.
Yeah, totally.
But I really enjoy it because I love talking to people, like you guys know. Yeah. And I like helping out and doing what I love, which is riding. So it works.
And I did not mean to imply that you could not teach me a thing or two. I am sure that you would. I just meant like, I wasn't sure if like your interest was like, like if you were just trying to get young kids to kind of follow in your footsteps and come up. But it sounds like you're more of like, you're taking my money and you're trying to make me a better rider, even though I have no hopes and dreams of ever being as fast as you on a racetrack.
It's all good.
Well, gosh, Spurge, are we out of questions here?
I want to play I want to play the engine sound guessing game, but there's something that we normally, I think what I've tried to do in certain interviews, not on the podcast, but I think it's interesting to bring it back around. Kayla, is there anything that you hoped that we were going to talk about today that we didn't hit on, and something where you're like, I always want to talk about this and no one asks me about this. I feel like we hit on corn,
right?
Which was cool,
that was
but
the peak of the interview.
You didn't see it coming, right? Yeah.
No, I'm
like,
good.
Is there anything that you're like, you know what? I really hope that we were going to talk about this and we didn't get to talk about it.
What question should we have?
I always want to talk about it. Yeah.
I don't know. You guys hit a good bit of topics. I guess the other basic questions are like, who's the person you hate riding with? Your least favorite rider. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to answer that one.
We should like try to draw some of these controversial statements out of you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Who's your least favorite? Who's the worst breath?
Who's the asshole in the paddocks that you don't want to be around? That's
exactly. No, I mean, I can name them, but I don't know. That's one of the things where I don't really have a lot of enemies. Honestly, like I go out and I do my thing, and I like when I'm at the track, off the track, I feel like it's pretty similar for everybody, but everyone gets along. But on the track, I honestly don't really care. If you're like my teammates, I might be a little bit nicer too, but everyone else, I don't really care. If you're going to be a jerk to me, I will probably just do the same back. So yeah, we'll see.
Right.
Well, we can play the engine sound guessing game, but I'm going to leave it as an open-ended question. So if we're playing this and you're thinking to yourself, oh, you know what? Like, I wanted to talk about my second motorcycle that I owned, and I forgot to bring that up. So we'll leave it as an open-ended question. You have carte blanche before this interview's over to bring it back around. But now we are going to pivot to the engine sound guessing game. The engine sound guessing game is brought to you by Akrapovic, maker of premium exhausts for your motorcycles. If you're considering making your bike a little bit louder or maybe perform a little bit better, consider an Akrapovic exhaust. And for those of you that are playing at home, that have maybe never played the game before, you want to crank your stereo speakers up to maximum volume because Kayla, Zach, and I are going to hear an engine sound together for the first time. And we are going to try and guess what this engine sound is. And we hope that you at home play along.
Indeed. Shout it out if you know it, everybody. Feel free to play that clip, Kayla. We'll all listen to it and see what we get.
Can I listen to it again?
Sure. Let's do it again. Let's do one more listen. Man. I like it.
Man, that sounds like a small bike. It sounds like a small bike.
Does sound like a small bike. I'm usually fairly confident in like how many cylinders it is at least, but I'm a little shaky here. Do you have any thoughts, Kayla? Are you hearing 1, 2, 3 cylinders? What do you got? If you're unsure, that's okay.
It's not a twin. It's not a twin.
I
don't think it's a triple either. I think.
Okay.
Very confident.
So
she says it's not a twin.
It's not a twin.
You think it's a single?
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Now that was my first impression, but then I started to doubt myself. What do you got, Spurge? Anything?
I think maybe.
Okay.
I'm stuck between a single or a twin. Like I'm thinking like a parallel twin. I don't think it's a V twin.
No.
I'm just wondering if it's like a 180 crank or a 360 crank P twin, like
180 crank P twin, like a Ninja 400 or something, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm thinking close to like a Ninja 300. I was thinking Cowie because of the way, I don't know why, but I was kind of like,
oh yeah, that was your spidey sense. It was Cowie, tingling, and you were sensing Cowie. Okay.
I wouldn't say a 400 though, because that didn't sound like I race 400s in Junior Cup. Like that's where I have most of my wins right now is from my 400 class. But
Okay. So Kayla, I'll give you. I will let you know that old producer Chase is a wily son of a gun, and there are times where he has pulled engine sounds from people's actual motorcycles without them knowing, and people have been like, "Never would have guessed that." So like, don't.
That's my bike,
but like, no, it could be your race bike.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not loud enough to be a race bike, right?
Yeah, it definitely sounds.
Let's do Let's do a hint, and then we'll listen to it one more time.
Okay. So the hint is. Give me 1 second here. Hint number 1, we get 2 hints, Kayla. Hint number 1 is it is a parallel twin.
Okay. All right.
So we know it's a parallel twin.
Okay.
Now that narrows it down. Let's go listen one more time.
One more listen.
I don't know.
So you said, I hate that this always comes back to like this psychoanalysis of producer Chase, but you said you raced a Ninja 400 in Junior Cup, correct?
Yeah.
Did you ever race a Ninja 300, YZF R3? And do you have any
I
other?
raced R3 as well. Yeah.
You raced an R3. Okay.
Isn't R3 a single?
No, an R3 is a twin.
Is it
321cc twin, if memory serves.
Why did I think it was a single?
It could. I was thinking like it's either going to be a 300 Cowie or maybe a R3. And I raced if it is going to be a bike that I've raced, I did race an R3 in Europe.
Okay.
And I got on the podium in Portugal at Portimao on an R3. So if he did some digging and was like, oh, pick a bike that she rode.
You never underestimate the amount of digging that producer Chase puts into surprising you for these.
I think
episodes.
that we can all agree it sounds like so you said this right out of the gate, small engine, and we have a hint that it's a parallel twin. It seems likely that it would be a small, like I can't think of any other small parallel twins aside from like a 180 crank. Anyway, that's what sounds like 180 crank to me. So that would be Yamaha or Kawasaki. I can't think of any. Are there any other engines in that category?
I think we're probably barking up the right tree here.
It's probably R3. Guessing.
All right, so
you're going to go R3? I love that. Yeah. I like that.
We have a final hint before you make any final guesses. So,
okay.
Lance Oliver, once again, is our managing editor for Common Tread, and he is a MotoAmerica. I have to say this, Kayla, like when Lance found out that we had you on the podcast, he was like, I hate being on the podcast. And the one time you have Kayla on the podcast and I don't get to be on here with you, so he was very excited that we were talking to you today.
Big fan.
He was very upset that he wasn't here to join in the conversation, but Lance Oliver gave the final hint to producer Chase. And it says, this make and model had a brief 2-year presence in MotoAmerica.
A brief 2-year presence. Interesting. Are there the Ninja 400s, Ninja 300s and 400s were used in Junior Cup for more than 2 years. Is that right?
Could he be referring to the fact that it was a Ninja 3? How many years was it the Ninja 300 before it bumped to the 400?
Or there was a CBR. There were CBRs for like a very brief period.
But that is
CBRs
a single.
Were singles.
Those were singles.
They were okay.
Yeah, I think so. So maybe it was the R3. Are R3 still eligible for Junior Cup? Or were they ever
I mean, they were.
Is it possible?
R3s were in there for a while. Like they were in there for a while,
okay.
And then went away and then came back.
Is it possible that we are focused too much on Kayla's racing the smaller Junior Cups? And are there any parallel twins that are larger displacement?
Oh, that like for Twins Cup that would have been
Twins Cup
eligible for less like a Ninja 650. That's probably still eligible, right?
I feel like that doesn't sound like a 650 though.
Yeah, I agree.
It sounds small.
I think it's a Ninja 300, and the reason that it had a brief stint was that then the 400 came out, and then it was sort of like bumped
And that was
out
Kayla's
of the-
first guess. So her first guess
Yeah.
was Ninja 300.
And then I second guessed myself, and then we're
That's how this game works.
Yeah.
It should be
It's
called.
a-
It should be called the engine second guessing game because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
always backtrack on what you think it is. Okay, all right. Well, I like the R3 guess. I like the Ninja 300 guess. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to put a stake in the ground. Anyone want to make a final claim?
I think we'll just do the 300. Well, just
Okay,
just
Ninja
do
300.
it. Just
Okay,
do it.
I'll go
Yeah.
YZF R3 just to be
Okay.
controversial, and we'll go with that.
All right. Well, it is definitely a psychological game as much as it is an engine sound guessing game. The answer today, this engine sound was a 2021 Yamaha YZF R3.
Wow.
Wow, it wasn't R3.
It wasn't R3.
So
How about
wait,
that?
I was there.
You know what? It's your
Man,
Portuguese.
second guess.
Yeah. So I didn't know that they were there. It says
Hold
it's a
on,
brief
I got
stint.
facts. I got
you have
facts here.
Okay, all right.
Yep. So first of all, thank you to Deb Yajoti for sending in your personal audio clip of your R3.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Lance goes on to give us the fun fact here for the day. So the fun fact from Lance Oliver himself says in 2018, all brands were permitted to compete in MotoAmerica's Liquid Moly Junior Cup, not just KTM, while two of the top three finishers in the class were riding Yamaha R3s. Almost the entire field switched to the Kawasaki Ninja 400 the next year.
I see. So the brief stint was like a cultural stint. It wasn't that it was like
okay.
It wasn't like ruled out. It was just sort of like
Okay.
people stopped using it because the other bike was better.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I feel a little
Man.
misled by the hint, but that's okay. I'm not that mad
Yeah.
about it.
You guessed correctly. How could you be
know.
mad at this? Like,
But it was a coin flip. Come on, it was a coin toss. We didn't know.
I should have just stuck with the dig. I knew the dig was there, and I should have stuck with
Word.
it. But all right.
Well,
this
you did
has
great.
been-
You did better than most
yeah.
people.
This was an amazing conversation, not just for the engine sound guessing game, but it was truly fun getting to talk to you today. So before we say goodbye, before we say thank you yet again for joining us, final chance. Anything that we didn't talk about today that you wanna hit on?
Just watch MotoAmerica, guys. I mean,
Nice.
MotoAmerica Super Sport. There's
a plug.
It's the best class, and I feel like this year we've been on a good roll. I mean, obviously, we've had some weird races this year. You know, you go to Barber. My first race, I was fifth, and fourth. I should have been fourth, but there was a red flag. And in a good battle, and then the next race, it's a total monsoon. And then we go to Road Atlanta, and it's like we're on wet tires on a fully dry track. And then we have one dry day. But it's like the class is super cool this year. Really fast people, up and comers like me, myself. And yeah, man, it's a good class to watch. Stay tuned, especially follow me and follow my journey up into this class and see where it goes. I have a good feeling about the next few rounds. So we'll see.
I love the confidence. I love the optimism. Love the confidence. I'm excited for you to get on that new V2. I don't know my ear from a racing slick, but I think it's gonna suit you. That's my prediction.
Well, thank you.
If you out there want to watch Kayla, want to watch MotoAmerica, we're working with MotoAmerica right now, and hopefully by the time this episode goes out, if you check the description link on YouTube, we're going to try and have a little 20% off offer. So if you want to go download the MotoAmerica app and actually watch all the racing that's happening, you'd be able to get a little bit of a discount to do so. And hopefully that'll inspire more people to get out and check out what's happening in MotoAmerica and all the action that Kayla and her colleagues are bringing to the American motorcycle racing market.
Indeed. So let's let this young lady get on with her life, playing guitar, riding super bikes, or whatever she wants to do. Now is the part where we thank you.
What guitar are you playing? That's the question. What guitar is your go-to?
They're pretty much all Ibanez. And I have, I love Ibanez. And then I have one Fender as well. So
you're really living that corn lifestyle. Are they 7 strings or are they 6 strings? Have you moved on to the 7 string yet?
No,
Okay.
I have a 5-string bass though. So
all right. Producer Chase is yelling at me. He's like, you have to end this now. He's like, you can't drag this on any longer. All right, Kayla, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, what a just delightful young lady she is. That was just like so well spoken and eloquent and intelligent and worldly. I'm very impressed.
Yeah. not to throw shade on any of our other guests so far on the podcast, but like she was so much fun to talk about. Great. Like
they have big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Anyone else has big shoes to fill. She's great. Obviously, super cool that that anyone her age could sort of like make a career, make a life out of road racing at any level, but especially at national championship level. It's really, really cool. And I'm an even bigger fan than I was before we had that conversation. I just 100%. Think I'm really impressed with her. So yeah, I'll give one more plug. Follow Kayla on social media and follow her racing. You have someone to root for now if and when you watch MotoAmerica.
I'm sure Matt will put it up on screen. I was just trying to grab her handle, but I don't have it readily available. So Matt, oh shoot. We should probably not supposed to say his last name. He's gonna have to beep that out. You have to beep that out. Our editor will put that up on screen. I realized what I said as I was saying it. So let's move on from that faux pas because he's gonna be PO'd. Let's go ahead.
Moving right along. We need to give away a t-shirt because as usual, they're piling up in the corner and we just can't have this. Producer Chase wants them gone. Spurge, how do people win a t-shirt anyway?
I am hoping by the time we promised new t-shirts at the beginning of the season, production delays have really affected that promise.
Tariffs. It's probably the tariffs. I'm just guessing.
But I saw the samples the other day on my desk, so that we hopefully inventory will be coming in soon, and we know that we owe a lot of people t-shirts right now, including you. PB Powder, who left us an Apple Podcast review. Please make sure to leave us Spotify comments and Apple Podcast reviews. The Apple Podcast reviews very much help us, as do the Spotify comments. This comment came in via Apple Podcast, and the winner today, PB Powder, said, I usually listen to Highside, Lowside while using the stair stepper at the gym.
Nice.
Physical fitness is important, PJ Powder. I appreciate that. I will be 15 minutes into an intense workout when Zach and Spurge will say something that makes me burst out laughing. I've gotten a lot of strange looks as no one else is laughing on the stair stepper. Thanks, guys, for being so entertaining, informative, and distracting. I love the show and appreciate your hard work and dedication.
Well, I can appreciate wanting to be distracted during a workout because I'm not good at just like focusing on a workout. I like to chase a basketball or a soccer ball or like listen to something when I'm running or whatever. So I can appreciate that very much. And I do love the image of PB Powder in the gym, just like on the Stairmaster,
falling downstairs.
And then all of a sudden just like laughing maniacally or even just chuckling and people, I don't know. It's the era of media in everyone's ear, but I like to think that people just think you're a total psychopath, PB Powder, and laughing on the Stairmaster.
So PB Powder, send us an email to highsidelowside@RevZilla.com. Send us your mailing address and your preferred shirt size. And if you see more than one Highside Lowside shirt up on the website by the time you listen to this, let us know which of the Highside Lowside shirt designs you want because there's more coming.
Feel free to specify.
I'm sorry, just on a sidetrack here. We started to ask Kayla about like her training regimen, and then we got distracted with Ben Spies, and it's like we didn't really get into like all the physical like training that I think motorcycle racers have to go through. But
maybe that's another podcast.
Yeah, but PB Powder has reminded me that like people think, oh, you're just riding a motorcycle. It's you're not doing what a runner or a football player is doing, but like it's a very intense physical sport.
It certainly can be.
We got to get into that. I like that whole other podcast. Let's move on though. Highside Lowside comment.
To the Highside Lowside comment, which comes in from Michael via Spotify. Thank you, Michael, for leaving your thoughts on Spotify. Michael says, I ride motorcycles on the road on a BMW F800 GT, but I want to do the Mid-Atlantic backcountry discovery route. Hearing you all discuss the advantages coming from a mountain bike to an enduro was great. I have been an avid mountain bike rider for 30 years. No idea it could give me a leg up riding a motorcycle off-road. Any recommendations on a motorcycle, parentheses, size, that will work well for a mountain biker on the Mid-Atlantic BDR? Well, I haven't ridden the Mid-Atlantic BDR. Have you, Spurge?
I've ridden the hardest portions of the Mid-Atlantic BDR, but I haven't ridden the easier stuff.
Well, where was that confidence when Kayla was in the room?
Well, first of all, Michael is referring to the episode we did with Chris Northover.
Yes, indeed.
Chris talked about cross training, and one of the things he talked about was, training on people coming from mountain biking onto dirt biking and vice versa, and which is easier. And if you're coming from a mountain bike over to riding off road, there's going to be some advantages for you. The Mid-Atlantic BDR, one of my favorite areas to ride before they actually introduced the Mid-Atlantic BDR was an area called Bald Eagle State Forest in Pennsylvania. And it's the only state forest in Pennsylvania where you're allowed to ride dual sports. There's a bunch of dedicated dual sport trails, as well as like crazy gnarly Jeep trails. It's a wildly fun area to ride. And so for Michael's question, coming from a mountain bike, getting into riding off-road, what would be a good transition motorcycle for him is how I'm kind of reading this question. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah. And well, BDRs can include various
multiple days.
Yeah, multiple days, right? So you want, pack some stuff on there. I think I would go kind of as small as possible for someone like Michael in this situation, something that's dirt bikey, because I think a dirt bike is slightly smaller, more agile than, say, even a small adventure touring motorcycle or something like that. Because I think that coming from a mountain bike, you will have a leg up, but the heavier and more cumbersome the bike is, I think the harder the transition will be. So I guess I would say something like a small dual sport. I don't know,
Say it.
I'm gonna go Honda CRF 300L or Suzuki DRZ 400 or Kawasaki KLX 300. Is that too small for a BDR?
So it's not too small for a BDR, but like there's stretches of like the Mid-Atlantic where it's like it's kind of more like sport touring-esque elements to
like
it, right?
It's pavement?
Some of it's pavement, some of it's gravel roads. So like I was thinking along your lines, maybe a little bit bigger. Like I was going Kawasaki KLR 650. And I like the KLR 650 because you can pack some luggage on there.
Sure.
And you're going to be like the Mid-Atlantic BDR to do it comfortably. You want to set aside like 7 to 9 days if you're going to do the whole thing. If you're just going to go play around in Bald Eagle State Forest like I do, you can, go out there and spend 3 or 4 days just riding the same trails over and over again. And then in that case, maybe a little 300 or something like that would be more appropriate. But I think the way that I was looking at this is because there's a little bit more travel and maybe some faster speeds. I think the KLR 650 in its newest iteration, especially, is a pretty comfortable touring bike. And, you can hit pretty much anything on that. The Mid-Atlantic is not one of the harder BDRs for people listening.
That's good context. See, I didn't know that.
BDRs, for people not listening at all, this is where we get ahead of ourselves. Sometimes we get excited. BDR, if you go to the Backcountry Discovery Route website, there's different trails all around the country where it's like they put together a 7-day trip for you. If you have the Rever app, the BDRs are actually integrated in the Rever app, and you have all the maps already pulled up for you on the phone. But the Mid-Atlantic is one of the easier of all the BDRs around the country. Okay. And it's still about a 7 to 8 day trip.
Well, in that case, I can understand the ADV bike recommendation. I might stick to my guns a little bit. I don't know. I might say like Suzuki DR 650, which is like, you can trundle down the road. You can put some soft bags on.
I'm not getting
into
the difference between a DR 650 and a KLR 650 with you again.
A DR 650 is way smaller. That's the only difference. It's just like more of a dual sport and less of an ADV bike. That's all. And I'm going to stick to my guns and say dual sport. And if
you're listening, you can't see the look on my face right now. How is a DR? You can recommend a DR 650, but not a KLR 650?
You think way smaller. How much do they weigh? They're like 100 pounds different, aren't they?
I don't think they are. But I'm not gonna look it up right now. Don't look it up right now. You're gonna bring this up? Are you gonna bring up your document? Did you weigh them both yourself, or are you just going with like the whatever?
A DR 650 weighs 324 pounds dry. So let's say 350.
Okay.
How much does the KLR 650 weigh? Like 450 at least. Yeah, like 460, 475. It's 100 pounds less motorcycle, and you're still going to be able to go down the road and be okay. I'm just
either one of them is
your ADV bike. Recommend your ADV bike, Michael, KTM Spurge. It's fine.
Michael, I'm not recommending an adventure bike for you. Whether you go with the DR 650 from Suzuki or you go with the KLR 650 from Kawasaki, either one of those
This is the guy who said, remember on our best bikes under 10,000, who said like, what about KLR 650 as a dual sport? And you're like, no, it's not a dual sport. It's an adventure bike. And you just said, I'm not recommending
I don't
adventure
pay
bike.
attention to what I say on these episodes. I can't be held responsible for what I said yesterday, Zach. It's a new day. It's a new day.
No, okay. Michael, good luck on one of your 4 motorcycles that you choose with our useless advice. But one way or the other, let's encourage Michael. That sounds 100%. Like fun. And I think you will have fun.
Do it. 100%.
Yes, do it.
If you got 30 years of mountain biking underneath you, as someone that has less than 3 months of mountain biking underneath me, the easiest part of this is when you come to obstacles, you don't have to use your thighs. You just crank that throttle down a little bit harder and the bike does the work for you.
Nice.
So whether you go with a small adventure bike like a KLR 650 or a large dual sport like a DR 650, you're like that's the playground you should be seesawing in, I guess you could say.
Okay. Well, we've
made PB Powder laugh at this point. He's on the Stairmaster choking.
I sure hope so. If PP Powder is an hour and 47 minutes into their Stairmaster
talking about huge thighs.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that's enough, everybody. We're talking about thighs and arguing over dual sports. It's time to go. Spurjo, what's your big takeaway here from the day's conversation? What's your South Park or Jerry Springer moment?
I know that this is going to sound stereotypical, but like I didn't see Kayla as a Korn fan. So for me, the fact that like, you know, I was expecting, I knew she was a guitar player, so I was expecting maybe something a little bit more like classic rock or blues based, but the Korn thing, and she's got some Ibanez guitars. Like I didn't see that coming. That's cool. I mean, that's, you know, it's weird because like, I think of that as like, oh, she's listening to modern music. And then I think of like that first Korn album came out when I was in 7th grade, or 8th grade. So I'm just like, oh, like that is classic rock for her.
It is
like,
classic rock. That's right. Yeah. I was just gonna say.
She is big into classic rock. It's just not what I think of as it's like every time I turn on like the classic rock radio station and Nirvana comes on, I'm just like, oh, that hurts. That hurts so bad. What about you? What was your takeaway here?
Well, I appreciated that Kayla, to bring it back to motorcycles and all the time music and guitars with you. I appreciated that she admitted that as a racer, when she first saw the bagger thing, she was like, that's dumb. And as I said, having raced vintage motorcycles and sidecars, and I've been on racetracks on a lot of weird stuff. I kind of like, I'm kind of like I already feel like I get it and I kind of am aligned, but I do have that piece of my brain that thinks like, baggers are silly. And I appreciate that she was sort of like, yeah, when they told me, I was like, that's dumb. And I think that her evolution of appreciating the racing, I hope is something that, MotoGP fans or a more global audience will appreciate ultimately. And I hope they don't all just think of us as ugly, dumb Americans when they see it.
I thought, to kind of bring it back to the motorcycle aspect, I thought one of the interesting things for me was when she talked about like hopping on the V4 and loving it. And like, it's such a different,
she had like a fire in her eyes too. Right. She was like, yeah, that thing was fast.
But like a difference in a racer's mentality versus like, a regular mortal's mentality. Like for me, like when I go to a track day, I'm like, there's a level where like the bike gets too much and then I'm intimidated and I'm much more comfortable in this area. And for her, it was like clear in that moment of the interview where she was like, when I got on the V4, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I'm not restricted in power. I want more of this. And I was like, that's why you are who you are.
Exactly.
And I am who I am. And it's just, that was probably the lightning rod moment of the interview for me. Right on. Which was cool.
All right, buddy, let's let everybody go. We're going to do this again real soon. If you've lasted this long, thanks so much for hanging out for this episode of Highside, Lowside, and we'll talk at you next time.
Adios.